Hey, what's going on, my royal priesthood? It's time for another conversation. It is Mercury retrograde, and your girl has been going through it, okay? But everything is evening out for the most part. It's Trans Awareness Month, and as a part of that, I want to talk about my humble beginnings and my transition. This may be a multiple part series, so let's buckle in. Remember to like, share, comment, subscribe, hit that intro. It's time for another conversation. I hope you are well, and I hope that you are finding joy in the retrograde and the chaos that's happening. And I'm sure we've all seen everything that the Dems have done. I advise you to contact your senators, contact your representatives, make as much noise as possible. We need change. That's all I'm going to say, because I want this episode to be very light. My week has been well. Things have been well. I'm not going to complain. I've been taking it easy and I've rested. But I did get to see Chainsaw Man, and it was freaking awesome. I urge you all to go see it. Now, I want to thank you all for watching last week's video, and for those who have responded to my social media posts concerning Keith McQueen's grandstand that he's no longer a part of the affirming movement, and in so many words, a repressed, supposedly ex-gay, whatever that means. And I had some thoughts about that in the aftermath, and I had some more time to process this. I was thinking about the title of the episode, and I was watching the interview with Dr. Will Horn, and McQueen said that he did not know what it was going to be titled. He wasn't aware of the format. He just went on the show. But as someone who interviews on podcasts and has had interviews on my podcast in the past, you run through the topic of the show, what you're going to name it, the outline of the show. Sometimes you may give a list of questions or give a general outline of how it's going to go in advance so the person can prepare. So for Keith to have said that, I don't believe that at all. And this is just a mess and a ploy. And I'm concerned about the people, because I hope that they don't fall into another trap such as what they were in with him. And I'm really sending my love to people right now, because the church is showing themselves really to be failing the open book test. Y'all have the book right there, and y'all are just failing horribly. What the hell? So a young lady on TikTok by the name of Nikalie has been calling different churches as a social experiment to see if they're willing to feed a starving baby and helping the mother of this child. She calls them with the sound of a baby crying, asking for formula because the baby hasn't eaten in so many days. And she's called a few churches, and they flat out said no. Some of them said they couldn't help, but advised of a lengthy process and sent her on a wild goose chase. And she's recording all of this on TikTok. And the name is on the screen and in the description box, so please go check that out. Please check out her work. And some churches have been put on blast because of how hateful they were and how unwilling they were to help. However, they had an Appalachia grandfather that helped. They had a mosque that helped. They had some churches that helped, and some people that helped. Even people have done other social experiments where they've gone to the dope boys, to the trap boys, to the street pharmacists, and they pulled money out of their pocket to help a mother get formula. And it was somebody that really needed formula. And the interesting part is that the Bible tells us we're supposed to help the widow. We're supposed to help the orphan. We're supposed to help those who are disabled, those who are in need, regardless of where they may come from. We're not supposed to reject people, because this is the Christ consciousness that Jesus taught. And it's interesting because we see them doing the complete opposite of what they're supposed to be doing. And I saw Pastor Raymond Johnson from the Living Faith Christian Center out of Baton Rouge. He made a response to her video, and he set it up calling her a witch, a scam artist, saying she's trying to make the church look bad. And he went on to blame the bad image that he was put in on social media, and said that he would unplug the internet And he goes further on to brag about how they've helped people pay rent, how they've made car payments given to the needy. But in that instance where you were caught on video, is not showing. And instead of addressing the issue and taking kind of accountability, you are putting the onus of your failure on the person that caught you in it, and you're only mad because you weren't caught in secret. And this is why churches need to do better if they're going to stream live. This is why they need proper leadership. They need to kick the toxic people out, because, sir, you're saying this on live and people are amening. You've brainwashed your people and you've told them that having empathy is a bad thing. So, sir, I wonder, what God are you really serving? Are you serving money, or are you really serving Jesus Christ? Because it don't look like it to me, darling. Okay, Raymond? And then seeing other churches with the same responses and people trying to defend these pastors, I'm like, some of y'all are in need. Some of y'all need help, but unless you pay a certain amount of tithes, you're not going to get any help. And what it is, the church really wants to continue the Ponzi scheme by having people come in and be a member in order to get resources. Now, if these people, which they have done social experiments, wanted to give donations, then people were quick to get those donations. What's getting me is that they take up so much money, but you can't help somebody that's not a member of your church. And already with the whole Marvin Winans situation, we see how the church is very elitist by how they break up the giving lines they'll break it up by $10 to $20. Then they go up to $50, $100, then $1,000 to all these extravagant amounts that they know people can't give, especially in this time. Where's the real focus for the federal workers, those who are affected by these budget cuts, by these subsidy cuts, by people, they're going to be kicked off of Medicare? What about people who need to get their medicine right now, who need food? What are y'all doing within the community to build mutual aid? I don't see any churches out here in the community doing anything. I see some churches in my neighborhood doing things, but I don't see many. I see everybody saying give, 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 but what are y'all going to give, and not take, take, take? And for the last several months, the church has looked bad. They've been embarrassing people for not giving. They've been embarrassing people for not giving them a hug after they've been berated by them. We've seen people being turned away from the church because of whatever reason. We've seen so much stupidity in the church. We've seen a pastor embarrass a woman and her child for not giving $2,000. We've seen a pastor, a gospel singer, say lock the doors in order for people to give. But you have these big mega buildings while the neighborhoods around you lie in ruin. I need the church to really do better. If you're really about Christ and you really want people to come, you would actually show yourself friendly without preaching to people about Jesus Christ. You would go out there and just do community service because it's right to do. You would help the widow without looking for acclaim and validation. And that's what's wrong with the church. The church has become a celebrity club. It's a country club where you can pay to get in, pay to get your name on a plaque, pay to be in the pastor social club, pay for a piece of paper and a position to get validation. And then a lot of people go into pastoring in these leadership positions so they can hurt people's feelings, they can prey on people, and they can use a Ponzi scheme to get money and pay their bills, honey. And if the church is a nonprofit and they take up so much money but they can't give to the people, they need to lose their tax exempt status. They need to lose it altogether, because at this point you're just a business for profit. You're just another social club. You're a country club. You're not doing anything. It's sad that the people that Christians like to reject, the trans community, the dope boys, the sex workers, the street pharmacists, I know I said that already, even down to the people that you don't think would even have money to give because you don't know what they have in their pocket. And so many Christians miss out on so much. And I often wonder about these churches that get funding through the various programs for grants and stuff. I wonder if they did a deep dive in some of these ministries, what they were really finding, what they're really doing with the money. Because I was an MD for a church here in D.C. Where the power had been cut off. The building was lying in ruin. We was having to change up service every now and then. And come to find out, after I left, they had to vacate the building because they were in violation of the lease for not paying rent. But I'm like, you got all this grant money to do work in the community. I don't see you doing any work. The pastor's in the Dominican Republic every other weekend, and then there's blog reports about you harming people. Girl, what's going on? And I left that church, and then, come to find out they were abusing government funds. You can't do that. You can't do that. That's disrespectful. And and what got me, I heard one of the people that went to one of the churches say they always have to worry about scammers. Okay. What if somebody is scamming? The real test is, are you giving out of the goodness of your heart? Are you really giving out of being a genuine human being? Even if somebody's scamming you, it's going to come right back to you if you're doing the right thing. When you practice what you so-called preach, people would come and people would gravitate to you. So I suggest you to sit yourself down, go back and lay on the altar and do some work, because you have a form of godliness and denying the power thereof. So I'm going to take a quick walk to the store. And here's some church announcements, a preview of what's on the Patreon for this week. Live Long Be Free Smooches.
Patreon exclusive. Yannick T's Naturist Tier. patreon.com/CWT Priestess.
And my friend was celebrating a new phase in body positivity for him. And I was excited. We had met via, I think it was Hangout Nude and True Nudist. And we had been talking, and he's a nudist. I'm a nudist. He's an exhibitionist. I'm an exhibitionist. And we wanted to do a nude hike before it got too cold to do so. And so I was like, bet. So he and I met up at this local park, and we talked a little bit. We had already exchanged pictures, did some chat, making sure we could trust each other. And I want to advise, before you meet up with anybody to do anything, vet them, do a face check with them, have a conversation with them, and have them meet you in a public place. So it's Trans Awareness Month, and I wanted to share how I started my transition. This started around 2007, 2008. Logo was real popular, and I was still trying to figure out some things about my sexuality and who I was as an individual, because I knew that I wasn't straight, but I also knew that I didn't fit the gender binary. And this started coming into question doing a theater class. I was dating a young lady, I'll call her Rose, and she was my sweetheart. And she and I were navigating the Christian walk together, but we were also navigating our own individuality as well. And she was figuring out her sexuality as well. And we had a discussion, and she had previously dated a bisexual man prior. And we had this whole conversation, and it was a complicated place for me. And during this time, I was doing the stage makeup portion of a theater class. We were doing gender reversal makeup. And I was excited because I always wanted to see what I would look like as a woman. I wanted to see what I would give if I played with the gender bending a little bit. And so in this class, we had went over in class the technique, watched a couple of videos, and went over, the highlighting and contouring. And I got my little Ben Nye kit ready, and I was ready to go. And that day in class, I went in and I started doing my makeup with what we had learned, and I was playing with the blush a little bit and really getting into changing my face shape for the stage. And when it came down to blending and contouring, I wanted it to look as seamless as possible. That it was, although it was theater makeup, I still looked real. I looked like I was, born a cisgender woman, but I was born a woman. And I had tried some wigs. I tried this yellow wig. It didn't look good. That was the picture I ended up taking for the class. And it looked very theatrical, very dragish. And I liked it, at in the end. And then I had this blonde wig that looked more natural. And I still gave Glamour Girl like the 90s glamour shots that the aunties would do back in the day. And I wish I still had access to these pictures. They were on a compact disc, a CD, that got destroyed in my CD disc drive back in the day. And I don't think I have access to those. I have to find one of my external hard drives to see or check one of my clouds. But looking at those pictures gave me euphoria, and I couldn't explain how good it made me feel. And at this point, I was already growing my hair out a little bit longer because I wanted to wear a nice long, straight blowout hairstyle, similar to what Daryl Stevens wore during Chance and Eddie's wedding on Noah's Ark, the series. And I was really patterning myself after that character's femininity. And so at this time, me and the prophet, I'm going to call her Tia, at the church, Temple of Deliverance, Tia and the other guy, we just going to call him Brandon. He was bisexual. I believe he was bisexual. I don't know how he identifies now. I don't care. Brandon, we had all, and her friend, we're going to call her SJ. Her and SJ, we ended up watching Noah's Ark, the series, together. And we watched the famous episode where Noah and Alex and the crew did the drag show. And Alex was concerned because he didn't want Trey to leave him. And I felt that because I knew when I was dating, although it was easy to tell that I was queer or bisexual, I had come to terms with it, but I hid it from the church. I wasn't necessarily DL, but I assimilated to get along. And around this time, I had also started watching Paris is Burning. And I saw how there was actual transgender people, and I started learning about the transgender community. And I said, I want to do drag. And I had talked to one of my friends from back home in South Carolina, and I told her I'm coming home from the weekend. It's fall break. I'm coming. I'm gonna come. I want to go to a gay club and do drag. So she said, bet. This is the makeup you'll need. She told me what highlights and stuff to use. And the makeup was different back in 2008. The whole drag aesthetic hadn't taken hold yet. It was still really just wearing a little bit more makeup, just wearing makeup, period. Because we're making that transition out of the 90s still, and people getting acclimated to a new decade of fashion. And so we got my Kiss makeup from the beauty supply store, and we ended up borrowing her mom's wig and getting some old wedge heels. And I got this nice little shirt with heart prints in it that fit me good. It was a small, of course. And I got jeans. This is when I learned that at the time I was like a size 2 in women's clothes. And I took note of that because I said, I'm going to do this again. I don't know how, but I'm going to do this again. So me and my friend, I'll call her Kita, we ended up going to this club that's now closed, and that property is something different now due to gentrification. It was called The Castle, an iconic club in Greenville, South Carolina. And if you live in South Carolina, or if you went to The Castle in Greenville, South Carolina, it's not far from Furman University, if you know what I'm talking about. You knew that they gave some great drag shows, and the drinks were good. And I was 21 and I could drink, girl. And so me and Keita, we ended up smoking a J and drinking. And I smoked a cigarette, and we ended up smoking a J with my ex. That's a long story. And we ended up going to the club and having a great time. Some of the drag queens and trans people that were there were asking me my name, and my name was Dominique Dubois. And they lived for me. They really lived for me. And I was excited. And I shared it with some friends close to me. And then I shared it with my then girlfriend. And she gagged because she had saw the pictures from theater class. She said, you did it. And she was like, well, what does this mean in terms of your sexuality? I'm like, I'm still straight, you know. it was just for fun. I wanted to see if I could pull it off. I always wanted to see if I was more androgynous in terms of my look or what I looked like, and she understood. But we later broke up later on because of graduating life circumstances and just I was beginning to deconstruct from religion and began, really figuring out where I wanted to be. And that was a complicated time for me. And I ended up deciding to just check out the LGBT side of things. And once the church people had found out, of course, I got brought to the altar to be prayed with. Tia, this prophet at Temple of Deliverance, the church I was at, tried to embarrass me so bad. And I had planned then how I was going to make my exodus because I wanted to live free and be me. And by this time, I had started, quote unquote, sneaking off. I was just going to the gay club and not worried about who saw me at this point. Because I had really started pulling away from the church initially, from this particular church. And I started pulling back from that particular ministry and just going full throttle in reconciling my Christian faith with my sexuality and possibly my gender identity. And so at this point, I was graduated from college and I would grow my hair out, do different hairstyles as much as I could. And I started learning about how to maintain my natural hair because I wanted to experiment with a more androgynous look and the gender binary. And I was living in Rock Hill at the time, so I wasn't able to really afford drag things at the time. And so I was just playing with the gender aesthetic and had not yet recognized that I was trans because I didn't know any trans people other than the trans woman in my neighborhood growing up and a couple of trans people here and there and the one person that my uncle knew personally. And I can't forget about Madam Shirley Gordon from Spartanburg, South Carolina, who was a well-known musician. And so I was really taking all of this into account, and I started dressing more feminine. I really started getting into the whole skinny jeans and the bootcut jeans phenomena and really trying out what I had seen on TV and in community. And that's when I really caught a lot of the ephimophobia in the gay community even worse. Being stood up for dates, being told I'm good enough to lay down with but not good enough to date. And I was determined that I was not going to let that stop me. So at this point, I was just watching as much drag entertainment, watching as much as I could about drag queens and transgender people. And I came across Brianna Jenkins and her vlog. And I discovered Diamond this time. And I really started understanding more about trans people. And I started really wanting to understand what it was like being trans and wanting to understand how did they know that they were transgender and what did this mean as far as being a man or a woman and breaking the gender binary, because this was all new to me. And around this time, I had also started watching a little bit of transgender adult content. And I was like, nah, I'm not attracted to trans people and I'm not trans. Nah, I just like dressing up. And I went through that whole battle. And I went through this within a matter of months, like all at the same time. Well, within a year, about 2 years at this point. But at this point, I had just, started discovering more things. And within a month period, I still had makeup that I had bought from when I did drag with my homegirl and some other makeup that I had bought because occasionally I had started wearing makeup around my family. And how that happened was I met up with my former pastor, Pastor Stevenson. And I'm just going to call him that because that's the general name. He and I had briefly dated during that time, and this was right when I had did the whole drag thing. I had went to his church. It was called Kingdom Cathedral Ecclesia in DC. And the pastor was Bishop L. St. Madison Venable. And I have a story about him too. And I saw the men here were wearing makeup. And he was like, yeah, we do that here in DC. It's not like down in the South. Bet. And I noticed sometimes when I would go to church with my friend in Charlotte, some of the guys wore makeup then. I was like, what? So at that point, I was like, you know what? I think I found my tribe. And so before I moved back to South Carolina, I was wearing makeup and, doing different things, to validate myself. And so I stayed in Rock Hill up until 2010. And during that time, I started dating an ex. And this opened up another gateway for me to experiment with my gender more and doing drag. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to end it right here because I don't want this episode to be too long. I'm going to come back Friday and I'm going to go into the next chapter of how the man I love introduced me to doing drag and also how he introduced me to being a call girl, so to speak. So until then, y'all live, love, and be free. Be sure to check out the Patreon. I have a nice naked vlog there. When you hear Sustaining the remix, that will indicate that this is a naked vlog. And you will hear who I am if it's a regular vlog. I'm trying some things out with the theme song and bringing a fresh new look as I go into the new year and I produce some new music for you all. So also I was going to have a song come out on November 28th. I am pushing that date back a little bit. So be looking for that on December. Let me get my dates together. It's going to be mid-December. I don't want to rush it at this time. I've had so much go on with my personal life that I just decided that I was going to just not hold off, but I wanted to do some more adding to the song before I premiere it. And as an artist, I'm sensitive about my stuff. And I chose the date for this actually I'm going to do this before Christmas on December 19th. So I had to push that back for my own sake, and I'm having some transitions happen. So be on the lookout for Leave You Alone. It's a great song, so I'm going to release that soon. I'm working heavy on it, so maybe a possibility might come out. You never know. Be checking my social media. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter. The clean one is Yannick T Music. The podcast one is Talk to Priestess. That's Talk number 2 Priestess. And also Blue Sky Talk to Priestess. Blue Sky Social. My newest one is Yannick Taylor. Blue Sky Social. And check out the blog yannicktaylor.com. I know it seems like I have a lot, and I'm not trying to dig into people's pockets, but I'm offering alternatives to the various content that I make and being able to ensure that I reach a wide fan base. So, so y'all live and be free. Smooches.